Tottenham advances into the round of 16. Protests are planned for Sunday. John Philippe Mateta and Colin Moani transfer links. That and more. Welcome, as always, to Project Spurs.
Oh, the streets are cold and grey, but the fire in our hearts won't stray from the pitch where dreams collide. We'll stand together side by side. Oh, when the Spurs go marching in, when the Spurs go marching in, I wanna be there in that number. Oh, when the Spurs go marching in, from the north to Wembley's light, under stars we own the night.
Hello, welcome back to Project Spurs. Today we're looking back at last night's victory in the UEFA Champions League, which saw Tottenham finish fourth and advance to the round of 16. Tonight joined by Billy T from Change for Spurs. We got Si the Fox is back. We got Phil and Joseph, as always. All four of the lads are back with us tonight. Tottenham will face either of one of four sides in the round of 16. It'll be Belgium's Club Brugge, Turkey's Galatasaray, Ajax's Juventus, or Spain's Atletico de Madrid. And critical to that is we will have the second leg of that at home in the Champions League fixture. But let's start with Billy. Billy, welcome to Project Spurs for the first time. I must admit, I've kind of given up on trying to work football out. We are 14th in the Premier League, an away draw at 19th Burnley at the weekend. No league win since December. 14 players out last night. However, we are somehow fourth in the UEFA Champions League, and we're into the round of 16. Football, eh?
Yeah, you just can't. You can never ever understand what's going to happen at this football club. It's just has a weird way of doing the wildest things all the time. And I mean, last night finally, I think it says a lot that the only thing we've had to smile about in 2025 so far was that Arsenal result, and finally we get something Tottenham to really celebrate. And it's a huge win, huge achievement. But I think if you were tasked with studying this football club academically, you'd have no clue where to start, would you? You just can't believe the sort of distant fortunes that we've had of the Champions League and the Premier League. It's been absolutely mad. But what an amazing night for the club, and what an achievement. And then I also saw that we're also the only team with 6 clean sheets in the Champions League. Vicario is leading the Golden Glove, compared to how bad we are defensively in the Premier League. It's just mad. But huge night for Tottenham, and a pleasure to be here talking with you guys, talking about it.
Oh, you just cut. So just went a bit crazy then. But yeah, I actually agree with you. Crazy night. Come over here onto Project Spurs, and then there's dropped my stream out for a few seconds there. For me yesterday, I just had that worrying feeling that it was going to be very Tottenham performance, wasn't it? So there was always going to be a concern of, is the Premier League form going to come over to the Champions League? But there's 2 back-to-back 2-0 victories now in the Champions League, both games fairly dominant. It does show that there's a clear difference in quality between the Champions League group stage and what we're traditionally used to in the Premier League. There's a lot more time and space on the ball in Europe as opposed to what there is in the Premier League. But there's little to none really in the Premier League, isn't there?
Yeah, it is a complete contrast. Firstly, I want to say thanks for having me on again, and lovely to be on with Bill. You guys are all gentlemen of the highest order, and love spending time with you. Yeah, we're a real dichotomy, aren't we? I mean, I was scathing at the weekend about the defending because it was schoolboy defending, but I'm going to come on and say, first of all, praise to the manager, got it right last night. Praise to the players, always praise to the fans that go over there and support us so well. And I think there is a well, people think I'm trying to kill Romero. I'm not. I just think you get a different Christian Romero in the away games, particularly in Europe and also Europe generally, because you get the switched on, dominant, world-class defender that he can be. And in the Premier League, he sometimes comes across that he can't be bothered. And I think that makes a huge difference to the team. Now, I could be wrong there, but, it's just the focus seems to be higher when we play in Europe at the moment, and the concentration seems to be better. So, I suppose it's on the manager to make sure we do that. But, maybe fate forced his hand yesterday in the way we had to play. And for me, I just thought Archie Gray had his most assured performance for the club. Boston midfield, people say Frankfurt aren't that great, or last week Dortmund weren't that great, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And I think in both games we did it competently. So, it's just an aberration where we go in the Premier League. I don't understand the mentality switch that seems to happen, but that's just my take on it, mate. Really.
Yeah, I sometimes sit there and think, why can't we do this? And yesterday was a clear example. When you looked at time, there was a lot of space and there was a lot of time on the ball. And then when you go back and look against Burnley, like I said, there's hardly any time. And there's certainly no space either. So it's just a big difference, I think, in the two. The Premier League is so elite at the moment. They equally, when you look at the table, if I bring that back up, you've got Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, Manchester City, 5 of that top 8 Premier League teams.
Yeah.
It just shows you the real difference in.
And I mean, Newcastle gave PSG a great game yesterday, and they were a point outside of the top 8 as well. So the Champions League is dominated by Premier League teams, and it's clear to see why.
They were just outside. They were in the top 8 at one point, wasn't they?
Yeah, they were. Gary, one other point with that, I think if you took the majority of the Premier League sides, obviously a few exceptions, if people want to look at those, but I think that any Premier League side that was in the Champions League would make it into the play-out round. They'd make it out of, they wouldn't be in the bottom 8, because I think that's how competitive the Premier League is. You can imagine, can you just imagine Brighton would do all right in it? Brentford will probably do all right in it, funnily enough. But there's lots of decent teams in the Premier League. That's not to belittle what we've done. Villa went well in it last year, didn't they? So there's a real precedent that the Premier League is probably strong and dominant at the moment. But if and this is an if we can perform like we did last night going forward. The R word is something that we don't need to concern ourselves with. And I think, what have we got for how many games have we got left? 14, 15? If we can't get 4 or 5 wins out of that, I'll be absolutely amazed. And then there's the other thing that I think helps us is players coming back. And also it just brings that pressure to the players that are in there. Like take Mawani, for example. He had to perform last night because now he's got Solanke breathing down his neck. In the Premier League, we've got 4 players that are ineligible to come back in for the weekend. So, you've got to perform, haven't you? Otherwise, you'll be out of the team. But yeah, I was really impressed yesterday, and if I'm going to be as scathing as I was at the weekend, then I have to be as wholesome with the praise when they play well. And I thought, to a man last night, they all did a job.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's easy to, and I do this with Richarlison. I've done this quite a lot with Richarlison, is criticising, but when he is on form and he's playing well, you've got to give them the credit as well. And last night, credit where credit's due, played well. Frankfurt aren't the best teams out there, but Dortmund equally are a decent side as well. Someone that was in attendance yesterday, Phil, you were there last night on location for Project Spurs. You sent us lots of videos that we shared across our social media, which has gone down great. How was the atmosphere in the way end, and what were the reactions like to the players? importantly as well to Thomas Schramm, because obviously he's been booed quite a lot in recent weeks.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good night and day overall, right? Because there was a lot of Spurs fans that came over. Admittedly, I think some of us or some Spurs fans in the UK, whatever, didn't travel because they're probably just too, depressed with the current situation, right? But most of the tickets that we had going were snapped up by other German Spurs fans, actually, who kind of came without tickets, but all dressed up in full kit and everything. So really, really good day, really, really good evening. And I think the overriding sense from yesterday was just actually some happiness. Like there was so much positivity in the away end and in the stadium. I think just because of, as it's kind of been alluded to a bit now, but it's still separate from the Premier League. We're slipping down the Premier League. We're probably going to be 17th again, possibly. We're in this European, competition, which is completely separate. We've gone through that journey last year, which was amazing as well. It was also a bit separate from us kind of losing every week in the Premier League. And I think everyone was just happy to actually see us turn up and play well. But, there were very few moans and groans, to be honest, like amongst the fans, even about the general situation. I think literally everyone who was there forgot about the Premier League. This was like a standalone event kind of thing, a standalone competition. Let's just enjoy ourselves. Let's enjoy the football. Obviously, if we hadn't turned up and we kind of, started the game really badly, or, Frankfurt had gone in the lead, we were sitting back the whole game or something, then, probably the atmosphere would have shifted as always. But, it was very positive from the beginning. And, even at half time, when obviously we hadn't managed to score, there was people were saying, like we need a few improvements here and there. Some of the players need to do this, that, and the other. But it was a sense of positivity. And even in the second half, like there was a feeling that, we could have easily gone on to score another 2 goals, right? We could have easily have won that 4-0, even 5-1. I think Frankfurt should have scored probably that one chance that they got where they clipped the crossbar, which again came from just one pass, right, down the wing. I think it was, would it be Udogie? No, it would have been Udogie and Danzo, I think, who were caught out. But, there's still some concerns there. But look, just positive to actually get a win in Europe, obviously get the automatic qualification. Everyone was checking the tables live, and it was quite exciting in that first half. And I think there was just a sense of relief that when that second goal went in, as always, because, when it's 1-0, once we start to sit back a bit, as always, whether it's Thomas Frank telling them to do that or whether it's the players just, getting into that, mental thing where they just can't push out, whatever, mixture of both, everyone was a bit, nervy. But the 2-0 was deserved, as you said already. Archie Gray was fantastic. Everything that he did in that game live was amazing. Xavi, again, where he gets the space in Europe, and against another Bundesliga team, which, as well, he was running the show, but he had a lot of opportunity to do that. In the Premier League, when you're getting pressed, hard, it's a bit more difficult. But, Solanke as well, just to shout him out again. I mean, we'll probably talk about him more, but, that was a really, really well taken goal. If you like live in the stadium, you could see how he just surged past. He had a little burst of pace, very calm finish, almost Kane-esque, right? Very calm finish.
It was.
Didn't blast it.
We'll come on to that. I like
really good.
It felt a bit like, I don't know about you, Bill, but when I was watching it, it did feel a bit like last season, where I hated the Premier League in this hand, and I was really excited about Europe on this hand. And last night felt the same, because I didn't feel the same anger towards it, oddly. I don't know how you felt during the game.
Yeah, and I think it's the first game in a while where we've pretty much controlled the entire game, because I think usually, particularly in the Premier League, we've had good first half or a good second half and not managed to string out a full performance of both. But I thought we completely controlled this game from pretty much from the off. And I think there was only that one Frankfurt chance, which we already mentioned, that went against us. And I think it was a really And to do that and go away in Europe, particularly when we're right under it in terms of pressure on the team at the moment, right under it in terms of pressure on the manager, is big character. And I know Frankfurt are out of the competition, and they're struggling. They've got an interim manager, but it's that atmosphere. I know Phil will probably be able to talk more on that, but the fans were right up for it. The Frankfurt fans, they were doing their classic thing of just singing the whole time, right, Phil? Like, it sounded really loud.
That's what they always do. They sing the whole time. They even if they're losing 5-0, they'll still sing and go on to the next chant. And look, to be fair, I mean, we did it last year as well, and we won, obviously. But you've got to give the players, I think, a bit of respect, and a bit of praise for actually turning up under pressure. At the end of the day, still, right, to get a result, and in that atmosphere, because there is very few, stadiums that are louder than that, honestly. And I've been to a lot of stadiums. That's always loud. It is intimidating. The fans are quite close to the pitch, really. It's a very, very nice stadium. So yeah, you got to give the players, a lot of respect. And can I just say, look, going on to your original question at the end, Gary, in terms of how the players were received at the end, and Thomas Frank,
Yes.
very well. The whole team came over, right, to celebrate, to clap the fans. Very, very loud applause for everyone, especially for Xavi, who kind of fired them up, right, with a few fist pumps as well. And Thomas Frank came over, and there was a very positive reception for Thomas Frank as well, to be fair. I didn't hear a single person complaining about the way of playing, or being too passive, or Frank out. Yesterday evening, it was literally all positive. We'll come on to that topic. I think the bigger topic of conversation, the bigger topic of conversation amongst the fans was Sunday and change for Tottenham, to be honest.
We'll come on to that towards the end of the programme, and Billy has fill us in with all that's planned. But it is, in a way, it's quite nice to hear that there wasn't any animosity. I certainly couldn't hear anything, which is nice. But we will go to Thomas Frankie, obviously, with the victory. It was a professional job. He had this to say. I think, first of all, very happy for the performance. I think the players showed great character, their mentality. We basically had 12 available players for Borussia Dortmund. And in this game, and in both games, the players stepped up. In this game, we were more or less in control from the beginning to the end of the game. I think that's a pretty big thing. I need to say, we've seen some of the results in the Champions League tonight. We've seen some of the results throughout the league phase. There's no easy games. So we're sitting here with 17 points, finishing fourth in the group stage, 6 clean sheets. I think that's very impressive. But throughout the game today, we were good in the high pressure. I think we looked strong when we defended low. We're very happy with how we've progressed with the ball and how we got quick up the pitch. We're still working on creating, but I think we created quite a lot today, which I'm very pleased with. So yeah, very, very happy. Joseph, just coming to you for some look back at yesterday. Finishing fourth in the Champions League, above sides like Real Madrid, Barcelona, and the current champions PSG. It's some achievement, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think any Tottenham fan would be sitting here having any issues with this Champions League group phase. This has been really impressive. And if Spurs can translate this into the Premier League form, then nobody would have a problem with Frank with anything at the moment. I think we'd all be kind of happy clapping and everything would be smooth. But problem is, the Premier League form hasn't been there. But just focusing on this, these 8 games in the Champions League, I've been so impressed. The only game, PSG was really, and to be fair, the Bodo Glimt draw, I don't think we played that great, but look how they've done. They just beat Manchester City and Atletico Madrid, kind of proving Frank's point in that there isn't any easy games. I think overall we've been we've just been so great in the Champions League. And it's confusing how we can't seem to translate any of that form into the Premier League. I think that's what fans are really desperate for. But again, if you are looking at it just on its own, 6 clean sheets, I mean, that feels unlike Tottenham, especially remember Saib, saying it against the Burnley game, when we've seen how poor we were defensively in that. And then to say we've got 6 clean sheets in the Champions League, it's great to see. But again, it is about translating that over to the Premier League now. You know, it's great to see us doing well in the Champions League. Who knows how far we can go? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say anything because there are some unbelievable teams in the Champions League left that I would say are much better than what we are. But, you know, again, it's about just recovering some kind of form into the Premier League. And we've got some really tough games coming up, which is going to be difficult. But, you know, that's the job. That's what Frank needs to do. He needs to translate what he saw yesterday, because yesterday I thought was one of our most convincing wins of the season. You know, like I know we've said previously, Frankfurt haven't looked great, especially over the last couple of months, especially with their interim manager. But still, to go away and get such a dominating win, and especially, you know, you saw some of the results from last night. You know, Benfica out of the competition, beating Real Madrid. Well, sorry, just going through in the last minute, actually. Sorry, Trubin scoring the goalkeeper in the last minute. Exactly. I mean, that was crazy.
Seeing that live, if you saw a goalkeeper, Vicario coming up and scoring in the last second, how incredible would that be?
Yeah, well, for us, it will be Vicario scoring an own goal. But yeah, I mean, it's but still, you know, seeing some of those results, you know, there were some really interesting results in that where teams needed to get results and they couldn't. And Spurs had a job to do and they got it done, which is something that we haven't seen from Spurs over the last couple of years. So yeah, really impressive win. You know, can't speak. I thought, again, the way we created chances as well was so impressive. I think we created so many chances. And if we took those chances, again, that game would have been done by half time. You know, it just took a little bit of clinicality. It's all we needed really in those moments. So yeah, really happy with the game.
If you look at Dortmund, we created a number of chances. We look at Burnley, we created a lot of chances but weren't clinical enough. Yesterday, we created a lot of chances and were more clinical. Hopefully, for all of our sakes, there is a turning of the curve here. Just before I come back to you, Billy, there is over 1,200 of you watching right now, which is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. We are trying to grow our YouTube channel. There's a few of you watching on there. Most of you are watching through my Twitter. So please do go over and give the YouTube a little like. We're nearly at 150 on there, but there's over 1,200 of you watching this. So if you can give us all a like over there, I really appreciate it. You're all welcome to come onto this whenever you like. You just need to email the email address below, or you can DM me on social media anywhere, and we'll get you on a future episode. But do appreciate everyone's support we've had recently. Billy, just coming to you, someone that I'm a big supporter of and would like to essentially see him stay at the football club is Joao Palhinha. Again, I thought he was came in after the injury, looked impressive in a back three this time. Just looks good wherever he seems to play. Outstanding professional. Would you be opposed to making that a permanent deal?
Definitely not for the rumoured 25 million. I think the only question mark I would have is if the manager changes completely. But I think, you know, I think he's already shown his worth for that kind of price anyway. And I think what's really interesting is I actually think he might be better in a back five, because obviously everyone knows what his strengths are is sort of breaking up play and tackling, and his weaknesses tend to be progressive passes. But, you know, if he's already in the back line, he doesn't need to rely on the progressive passes as much. So I think it's actually a really smart move to play him there. And I think he just helps us control the game a lot more, and he's just so incredibly competent as a defender that I think that could be a really good position for him, because he kind of drifts in between the spaces of the defence and midfield, which I think is where he's at his best. So I actually think in general, I think it's been the last three games, Dortmund, Burnley, and this game we switched to a back five, and I actually think we look better in this shape than we do before. Because absolutely. I'm surprised that Thomas Frank has not done it earlier, because we look really good in it against PSG. And I think since Danzo's come into the side as well, you know, that's another bit of defensive solidity. We kept 2 clean sheets in those 3 games. I know we had a bit of a horror show against Burnley, but, you know, you can put that down to us being random in the Premier League. But I think moving forward, Thomas Frank's going to stick to this wing back shape now, because I just think it suits our players more. And I'm really surprised that it's taken till, you know, the end of January for him to do it, to be honest. I thought after that PSG game where we looked so good in the Super Cup against them, going back 5 man for man, I'm surprised it's taken this long to get it. But I think I have a feeling that he's going to stick with this shape for the next few games.
Well, I certainly hope so. Phil, we were at the Dortmund game together, weren't we? And we both had quite a long discussion about it's a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1. It's kind of similar to Glasner's style. We both really like this, and we've got players currently that can play it, and those that are out on loan as well. Look at potentially Vuskovic can slot straight in there. I mean, you could have Vuskovic, Romero, and Mickey van der Ven, or even a Danzo. Mickey can play left wing back. I mean, tell us your thoughts on there to the 1,300 of you watching right now.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree, but we did discuss it then when we said straight away that it looks a bit more fluid. You know, whenever we have played a back four, whether it's 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 or, you know, 4-1, whatever, 4-4-2, we just always look static. There's not enough space on the pitch, right? As soon as you switch to this back three, we just look like there's more space and the players are more flexible on the pitch. You know, like the game yesterday, Archie Gray, although he was playing in midfield, obviously, he was coming back again, you know, into that back three to kind of pick up the ball sometimes. And the flexibility we have with that back three is Destiny Udogie can either play as the wing back or he could play as the left centre back, like he did really against Dortmund, right? If Mickey's not there or Mickey's being rested or if he's even playing in the centre, you know, and with Archie or whoever else in there, Palhinha obviously as well, there's a lot more fluidity in terms of where the wing backs go. There's more space for them as well to run in, either to receive the ball or to, you know, run into space. And as you said, Vuskovic, what a player he would be in a back three. I think he's made for a back three personally, rather than, I mean, he's going to be good enough to play in any defense, right? But he would slot in. If we could keep Mickey van der Ven and Romero, Vuskovic would be that right centre back probably. Like he would be fantastic with Danzo as a backup. But look, we were quite clear about that back three, that we couldn't understand why, as Billy said as well, why Frank hasn't done that before, because we knew that Frank likes a back three as well, right? And he's kind of played it against the bigger teams, I think, in the past when he was at Brentford, you know. But now he's actually playing it normally, and I think the proof's going to be a bit in the pudding though now when we actually play, you know, these big teams in the league with a back three. I
love a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-2-1. Those are formations that I played and I coached at, and I'm a big fan of those. When I've put them on social media, I'm going to come to you, Si, on this, and then obviously you as well, Joseph, for your thoughts on it. Whenever I've put a 3 on there, which is a 3-4-3, let's just say for making it easier, you get a lot of reaction to being, oh, why are we playing 5 defenders? But it isn't 5 defenders, it's 3. And because we're playing a Pedro Porro and an Udogie that are not fullbacks, they are wing backs. We are screaming out for this formation. So where do you sit on the formation changes that's?
No, I'm all in favour of it. I mean, I played it in semi-pro football when I was younger. I was a floating player. I could either play in the middle of the midfield or I could drop into centre-back, and it depended what the other team were matching up against us. So we'd have a look at them for the first 5-10 minutes, and then my position would be set depending on what we were playing. So you just need to be intelligent. It's a bit like Archie Gray dropping in or Palhinha dropping in. They did mix a bit yesterday, which was good. But I think one thing that helps the team, and I think if you look back, it'll be on all of our better performances this season, when we have a left-footed player playing at left back or left wing back or whatever, and then it doesn't matter then if your forwards invert. So it doesn't matter whether you're playing a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1. You've always got those players wide that can stretch the other teams, and therefore I think that's when we look at our best. And, you know, look, personally, I don't think we'll get anybody else in the rest of this window, sadly. But for me, if you'd have got a Robertson or this lad Sousa, you know, he's only just got you can't have any expectations of him. But if we got a left back or a left-sided defender, which means, I think I've been on boring on this subject, I would have tried to get Lekeba out of Leipzig in the summer, because then you could play Mickey van der Ven as your marauding left-sided left wing back or whatever you want to call him, because you've got Lakeba who's left-footed inside of him. It just balances the team out. So for me, 3-4-3. And also, if you look in our squad, one of the strongest positions we have is centre-back, because you've got Takai out on loan, you've got Vuskovic on loan, you've got Phillips on loan, we've got Dragas in there already. Ben Davies isn't a left-back anymore, although I still think we look better balanced when he was playing at left-back. We have the players' strength in that position to play those formations. And that's why, for me, it was important. And then I still think we left the summer without a left-sided defender. We were too light. But Pedro Porro wouldn't be injured now, because he would have been rotating with Udogie. Spence, not Udogie. And also, I think that Spence is easy to play against when he's playing on the left-hand side of the defence, because if you're defending against him, all you do is show him the outside. Now and again he will go past you, but the majority of time, he wants to come inside, so you know how to defend against him. So for me, definitely 3-4-3 is the way to go. But we need the players in a balanced squad if you're going to do that. And one thing I do struggle with Spurs generally over the years is the playing style. We go from, a manager that wants to play 4-4-2, for a manager that wants to play 4-2-3-1, to a manager that wants to play 3-4-3. If you've got a strong sporting director, that's where, director of football, whatever you want to call them, if the club is going to play a style, you choose it, and then you build the players and the managers around that style, don't you?
Absolutely.
And it just brings that. It brings that. What do they call it? Alignment is the buzzword.
The alignment, the alignment has been so poor. We've gone in like 180, haven't we, to what Ange was to now what we've got here with Thomas Frank. Jesus, just coming to you on that formation. How are you sat on it? Because I really like it. I think it works for us. And where we're struggling, in my opinion, is the wingers. But this eliminates it, because we've got good fullbacks or wing backs, and then we can move some players in like a double number 10, for instance. You can have a Tel in a number 10 role. You can have Xavi. You can have Odegaard. You can have Maddison, Kulichevsky. There's so much options that we have in that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a couple of weeks ago we mentioned this. We spoke about, first of all, what Si said. I completely echo it in terms of it utilises our expertise, what Billy said as well, in terms of the players we've got. They fit this formation so much better than the formations we have been playing, especially with a 4 at the back. And I think it does work with the identity of Tottenham. We want to play forward to dare is to do football, and having 3 defenders who can sit and defend, and allowing your fullbacks to run forward and to get involved in the attack. There's a lot more freedom in that. With Ange, we played a 4 at the back, and he wanted to play with our fullbacks getting forward, but it left us too light at the back. We just didn't have enough defensive solidity when we did that. Well, when you play 3 at the back, you have a bit more defensive solidity in that. And it allows Udogie on the left, Porro on the right. And again, Porro, to me, he's a winger. He is not a right back. He is basically a glorified winger. He's always been his what he does is he crosses the ball very well. He links up well. His defensive, output hasn't been excellent for Spurs throughout his whole career at Spurs. So I think he is a wing back. He naturally is. And I think Udogie naturally can be a left wing back as well. I think maybe his final ball can use a little bit of improvement. But in terms of building up the pitch with his play, with his link up play, I think it's been really impressive. So it definitely fits. And, we mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago about, the alignment, the identity of teams. Barcelona always played with 4-3-3. Juventus have always played with 3 at the back. It's always kind of been their identity, and Tottenham haven't really had an identity for a while. Like you said, with Ange coming in, then Frank, we had Conte, we had Pochettino. Just all of these managers have completely different philosophies, and that doesn't fit what we expect as fans. Now, Tottenham should really find their identity, and this comes from the ownership. This comes from the CEO. Whoever's in charge, they need to find the identity of Tottenham Hotspur. And what fans want is the attacking football that we saw under Pochettino, that we've seen in the past. We want that to be our identity, and we need to build from that And no matter whoever the manager is, whoever the playing staff is, it should always fit that identity no matter what. So, you know, and the thing is, you can see, yeah, we've improved massively playing a three at the back. You know, we've seen it in every game we've played it. We've always looked better. So it's something he's got to stick with. You know, obviously we've got some really tough games coming up. The one thing I worry about when you play a three is you usually only have two midfielders, two kind of sitting midfielders. And when you play that and you come up against very good midfields like Arsenal's, like Manchester City's, you need those two midfielders to hold strong. And that's where it could be a bit of a worry. You know, when you come up against like a free, you know, with Arsenal where they've got Zubimendi, Rice, Ødegaard, that's going to be tough for Archie Gray and whoever plays Conor Gallagher. That's going to be difficult. So you need those two midfielders really to be excellent. And I think in some games it can, you know, we can see Archie Gray played really well last night. I think we all have really high hopes for him going forward. It's just, you know, we need to be able to hold our own in those games where we're against, you know, elite level midfielders, and that might be a struggle at this moment. But again, we're linked, you know, I know long-term links to players like Adam Wharton, long-term links to, you know, some really high-profile midfielders. I think if they were to come in this formation, they would really enjoy it.
Gary, can I just make a point on that? You know, as you're saying there, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, but when you're playing against the Arsenals of this world, you can match them up. So say, for example, given everybody's fit in the squad, you could go Conor Gallagher, Archie Gray, and I don't know, pick a Pat Matasar or whoever you want to match their three up in certain games. You can still let your fullbacks bomb on, play Gallagher a bit further forward. So with a 3-4-3, it has got the flexibility to match teams up when you need to get them. And again, if you've got, say you're playing City at the weekend and you've got Semenyo on one side and you've got Doku on the other side, then you know, you have to think a bit different. So dropping into a 4-4-2 for that game, because you've only got the robot up front for them, the android, you can match, you can be flexible for certain games, but I just think that a 3-4-3 gives the wide players, and Porro's good at delivering the ball, the freedom to go forward. So, you know, I just think it gives you that flexibility as well. And so
there's a lot of flexibility. The 3-4-2-1 also you can overload if your two number 10s drop in. So if you've got, let's just say, for instance, there's Xavi and James Maddison, which I think would be quite a good pair behind a central striker. They can overload in that middle area, essentially would be a 4 against 3, but it's flexibility that you definitely need. What we also really do need is the team reacting better. So the club at the moment, or the 11, they don't react very well to adversity or setbacks. We saw that against Burnley. Thankfully, last night and against Dortmund, we didn't see that. We didn't have to overcome either. So the setbacks and adversity, the players seem to crumble a little bit. So just coming back to you, back-to-back clean sheets in the Champions League, but the form doesn't quite paper over the problems at the football club with both the ownership, the man on the bench, and the recruitment. The final days of the January transfer window are obviously critical. What are your hopes leading into this final, what 5 days is it? 4 or 5 days now?
Yeah, hopes and reality, I think, are far apart. I hope for 1 or 2 in the door. The reality is I don't think we'll get that. That's my honest opinion. And look, for me, papering over the cracks, if we'd have defended properly against Burnley on Saturday, we'd have had 3-2-0 wins in a row, wouldn't we? That's the thing, and it's more to do with the players that we have got applying themselves a bit better to all games, not just the games that they might like to play in. So, do I think we'll get anyone in? I doubt it personally. I mean, we may. And I think a lot of clubs, you know, were waiting to see what happened last night and tonight for the dominoes to fall when all European games are out the way. So you might see some movement, but I'm just not sure. And again, if you're looking at, you know, papering over the cracks, the players have shown they can do it. You don't beat Man City away, in my opinion, if you're a bad team. You don't beat the teams, regardless of what you think of them, in the Champions League if you're a bad team. You don't, you don't get the results that we have got if you're a bad team. So for me, as much as I've been critical of Thomas Frank and his lineups and the way he set the team up, I'm equally critical of the players because they haven't performed to the game plan that either he wants or they're capable of. And I do think that whether it's this window or the next window, I think I'm boring on the subject. Even with Kulusevski and Davis available, we have 5 left-footed players in our squad. That's not a balanced squad out of 25 players. That's less than a third. So you're always going to struggle with this. Then that comes to alignment and papering over the cracks. By the time the next stage of the Champions League is finished, we'll have had the best part of 85 million quid into the coffers of the club. We allegedly had 100 million quid that they were going to put into the team. Hashtag hotel for anyone, because we're contractually obliged to finish that, but if we want to host Euro 2028 games. So for me, the pressure always has been and always will be on the owners of the club. And God bless Billy and everybody else who gets involved with change for Tottenham. That's the message that's coming out. We can't be a disjointed club. You can't talk about competing in all 4 competitions and then expect to do it with a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
And you have to have a balanced squad. So I'm not sure that we'll get even one in the door. My hope would be that we would get a couple, but I'm not sure that we will.
Just coming to some of the finances that you picked up on there, just through us qualifying for the round of 16, Tottenham have generated 42.6 million in Champions League prize money after beating Eintracht Frankfurt to reach the last 16. All 36 participants receive 6.18 million, and then the top 8 receive an additional 9.56 million. League phase victories are 1.8 million apiece, which is just ridiculous. So Spurs have totaled just over 9 million in wins there. Draws are 606,000, which isn't something to grumble about, I guess. So we've got 1.2 million plus there. Overall, and 42.6 million from Transfer League campaign revenue alone. And that doesn't include match day revenue. That is us buying a pizza, because I always buy a pizza, beer, anything else, tickets. That doesn't include that as well. It's an insane amount of money that simply is not being put back into the football club. We will come on to Change for Spurs with Billy shortly. But Phil, Talk Sport have said not to rule out Raheem Sterling potentially joining Spurs. However, he's also being linked with Leeds and several other clubs. Spurs need a position filling, and he's available. Is this just one of those let's put 2 and 2 together and make 16? Please say yes.
It has to be, doesn't it? Really, but again, nothing surprises us with our club, and the fact that Paratici is still there for another 3 or 4 days. And I still don't understand personally why he wasn't put on gardening leave when it all came out about him going back. I honestly don't understand that. That's
happens
down
in
to
any job, right? Any job in the world. You say you're off, and it's a high-powered job.
Exactly, it's a conflict of interest, and I just don't understand it. That's on Vinay, right? And it was Vinay's decision to get him back. He didn't need to employ him because he only came in October, didn't he? Or whenever it was, and then doing this double thing with Lange as well. It's just unacceptable. But I mean, the Sterling thing, it has to be it's just agent rumors probably. There's no way we sign him. Honestly, if we sign him, then again, you know, I've been threatening to tear my membership up for a long time now, but that would be a reason for me to do it. Again, when it comes to like what we're going to do, I think we will get in one more player. I think somewhere we'll get in another player. Who it is, what position it is, I don't know. I mean, we've still got until the 1st, right? I think the deadline is, or is it even on the 2nd? The deadline.
It's the second.
It's the second, isn't
But
it?
if you look at here, from Connor, who's watching over on YouTube, it's actually 70 to 75 million pound we have generated, which include excluding match day revenue.
That's why Gary, I said 80 to 85 million, because if you include that bit in there, that's where we are, mate.
It's unreal. What we're generating and what we're seeing on the pitch is just not what.
Gary, we've got a 15 million net spend so far this window. 15. You know, and actions speak louder than words, right? Always. And you know, when our CEO comes out.
Let's move on from Raheem Sterling talk, because I just honestly didn't think that was going to be on my bingo card. However, there is obviously transfer talk. Billy, just coming to you, Colin Moani has been linked with a move back to Juventus, actually. But goal last night might delay things. Are you for or against potentially letting him go if we find a replacement in?
Definitely for letting him go. I think he's been really disappointing, particularly in terms of his application. I think, you know, you see it even last night. There is a talented player there, but it's just too many times, particularly in the Premier League. He's not turned up, and I don't think he's committed to Tottenham. He seems more committed to being sort of, I think when he was trying to get into the World Cup squad, maybe. I think that dream has possibly disappeared because obviously France are massively stacked in attacking talent. I don't think he will make it. And since that sort of dream has dissipated, I think his commitment as Tottenham has as well. And I think he looked really talented at times when he started in flashes, but we've not seen it anywhere near consistently enough, I don't think. And if we can get an upgrade, then yeah, sure. But at the moment, we're in this weird situation because obviously Dominic Solanke is not in a situation where he can play 90 minutes twice. He hasn't played 90 minutes once yet since he's been back, and obviously had to go on the bench last night. So we need somebody. So if we can replace him with someone better, I know we were linked to Mateta, but that looks like that one's gone already. Strand Larsen was also another one that we were linked with. That one's gone already. But if we can replace him, then sure. If not, then we're just going to have to keep him to the end of the season. But I think it's been a really disappointing transfer. And I think last night goes to show even more that, you know, where is this player in the Premier League? He's been so poor for us in the Premier League that I would not be adverse to selling him at all. But would have to replace him because we can't afford to lose any more forwards at all.
Can I make one point, Gary, on that? Gary, can I just make a point on that? And one thing that we need to bear in mind, and I've seen lots of people saying, you know, get rid of Kinski, get rid of Moani, do this, do that. We can only change 3 players in the Champions League squad. So if you take Moani out and you're replacing him, or you want to bring Gallagher in, or you want to do whomever you want to do, you need to consider the injuries that we've got and then what impact that has ready for March. Now, we don't know when Kulusevski's back or whoever's back, but it is a factor that has to be considered because you can't just say, well, I'll take him out or get rid of him or do this, that and the other. We have only got 3 changes to make. And if we use one up with Kinski or we use one up with whomever, you know, Colin Gallagher going in, just need to be careful, that's all.
Yeah, I don't see him leaving, actually. More I think about it, I don't see him going. I don't think we get a replacement in either, and I think it messes up too much of that Champions League squad. However, he doesn't mind scoring against these old teams. He obviously scored against PSG, he scored again last night against Eintracht Frankfurt. We'll end up getting Juventus in the next stage, and hopefully he'll end up bagging one in there. But Joseph, just coming to you, someone that I was really happy to see come back is Dominic Solanke. He's coming back in. He scored again. That's 2 Champions Leagues games in a row. This time, unfortunately, it wasn't a Puskas Award nomination goal, unlike against Dortmund, but really good to see him back. Took the goal really well, sort of Harry Kane-esque as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear to see like when he comes into the team and when he's out of the team, there's a clear difference in, how we progress the ball up the field. He can hold the ball up so well when the ball's played into him, and he can link up the play so well. And it's something we haven't seen from our strikers enough this year. Richarlison did it to a certain degree, but still not to the same consistency as Solanke does. And again, when he finally got in front of goal, when he had that moment, he had the killer instinct to put it away, which is something we haven't seen from our forwards either, especially Richarlison. And Colin White doesn't seem to have the kind of output, the working output to even get in those positions to put it away. So yeah, it's great to have him back, but like Billy said, he hasn't played 90 minutes, and he's probably not going to be playing 90 minutes in the games going forward. We need to manage him, and the same with every player. We need to manage him, and that kind of comes onto the wider conversation of transfers, which has been so disappointing and so just confusing being a fan, to see the injury list that we've got, and a lot of those players aren't going to be back anytime soon. And to see, the kind of, Porro's now out for 4 weeks after he's kind of picked up a knock, but that's from him playing every minute of every game, and it's a consistent problem for Spurs. Yet all we've done is, we actually haven't, Sousa's come in, but we don't expect to see him in the first team anytime soon just yet. We've only really added one player to our squad. Well, actually, we've lost others. Some younger players have gone out. So we haven't increased the numbers at all over this window. And we're now in the last final days. And I don't think any of us are expecting anything to really happen. And I think this is the big thing that people have a problem with the ownership, kind of being gaslit into saying we're going to be doing all of this stuff. We're going to be spending, this money. Obviously, Vinay had this big kind of, lecture almost in the program saying all these things that we wanted to do, but he hasn't. Nothing's happened. And I know not everyone can expect everything to happen in one window, but show us something. Show us, what you truly want to do, and give us a taste of that right now, because we need it. And I'm sure that brings us on to change for Spurs, change for Tottenham, because I'm sure that's one thing that a lot of fans and change for Tottenham are really unhappy about.
It certainly does. Billy, we're going to come over to you. There is a planned protest for this weekend against Manchester City. I've put on the screen some important information on there, but do please share everything with us.
Yeah, so this is exactly what the perfect lead in, really. I think this was a really big opportunity, this transfer window, to show that the owners have changed, or there's a new intent behind the football team. And I think 29 days into the transfer window, so with 4 remaining, they've already showed that nothing really has changed. I think it's been a really disappointing period for Tottenham. I don't think the action in the transfer window at all reflects the place that we're in. We're in real danger of being in a relegation battle. So we are going to be protesting on Sunday at the Manchester City game. This time we're taking a slightly different tact. We want to protest inside the stadium. The reason for that is we feel like we've done a number of protests in the past, including 1 this season and 4 last season, where we protest outside the stadium. This time we want to bring it into the stadium to try a different tact and see how that goes, and to try and send the message on TV as well. This is a televised game, a big game, Super Sunday with Tottenham. So it'll be taking place before the game, during the game, and after the game as well. So before the game, we're going to meet at 4:00 in the South Stand area, the outside place where the screen is. And we encourage people to bring scarves, flags, banners, and chants. We'll be bringing our banners too. We'll make it loud before the game. During the game, we want some Enoch out chants to supplement the other chants during the game as well. That's not to say the whole game. We do want to be encouraging the players. Change for Tottenham has always been really important to point out that this is against the regime, not the players. Support the team, not the regime, is one of our biggest sort of mottos that we go by. But I think these owners have to hear it from match-going fans now too. And then we're going to try for the first time a walkout. And this is something which we have been asked to do a lot, and sort of asked to do a lot. The problem with a walkout is it's quite difficult to organise, and it needs sort of big numbers getting behind it. So we're going to see how it goes for the first time. We think if lots of fans walk out on the 75th minute in this particular game, that'll be a really powerful TV gesture. Now we're going to try. This is our first time doing this walkout, and we're going to see how it goes. We're going to try and do it in multiple home games this season until we get the owners sort of reacting in the way that we want as fans. And we're going to try and encourage everybody to walk out on the 75th minute, because we think that'll be a really powerful gesture to show the owners that match-going fans have had enough. Because I think last night goes to strengthen it further. We've got an opportunity to do something in the Champions League now. We're through to the last 8. We're in a relegation battle. I think both of those reasons tied together means we need an ambitious transfer window if we're going to survive, because our squad is down to the bare bones. There were 12 players fit last night. There's a few coming back from the Premier League, but there's nowhere near enough. And if the board don't act, we're in real danger of finding ourselves in a really tricky situation. And also, we have an opportunity to be in the knockouts of the Champions League and go, try and go on a run. And neither of those things are being reflected in our transfer window so far.
Yeah, excellent. Me and you were on Last Word on Spurs before the previous protest. I was very adamant in that I was supportive of you all, but I wasn't going to protest because I felt I needed to give the new 2.0 ENIC the opportunity. That was 2.5 weeks ago. I've seen absolutely nothing, so I will be standing there with my Change for Spurs scarf, which I have currently hung up in my gym. They haven't shown me anything that was seen in that program, and I certainly will be standing with that. I know, Si, you've got a couple of questions you wanted to ask Billy as well, based on the protest planned as well.
Of course,
yeah. Just, Bill, we see a lot of online support for what you're doing. Why do you think it doesn't or hasn't translated into a bigger presence of people, over at the gatherings outside the ground previously? Have you any thoughts why that is?
Yeah, I have. That's obviously been a key consideration, something which we've tried to do something a bit different with this process. I think there's multiple reasons for it, and obviously it's a really complicated question. I think one of the reasons is, some fans are just sort of happy to go to the game, have a day out with their family and then come back, and they don't analyze. Well, it's not to say they're any fan is better or worse than anyone else, but maybe they don't sort of look at this sort of granular level of what the board are doing, as we kind of guys do. Maybe it doesn't sort of it's not something they're interested in terms of what's going on behind the scenes at the club and things like that. I think a big thing which we're facing this year, and this is something which is reflected in the conversations that we have. I think a lot of people this season in particular have given up the ghost with everything. And I think that's why you're seeing the attendance in terms of the actual stadium is dropping as well. I think a lot of people that are sort of feel the same way that we do about the owners have stopped attending matches in general. And I also think it's just easier to go online, isn't it? And sort of, vent your frustration, and maybe to take part in a protest, it takes, you have to stand up and do it. You have to stand up and do it yourself. And I think, frankly, a lot of those people that, support us online maybe have no intention of going to matches, which is fine too. So we're battling all kinds of different things. Now, I know it's really ambitious to try and do a walkout. And to be perfectly honest, I think we've got a loyal core of about 200 people that support us on protest, which is fantastic. And there may only be 200 people that walk out with us on Sunday. But what we're going to try and do is, by consistent action, is build those numbers. So next time it might be 100, then it might be 150, then it might be 200. And I think we've got to build it consistently. I think the reason why we got such good numbers last year was because, we had multiple protests and we had lots of time to promote them. So it's a really complicated situation. But what I think is now that we're not going to be drawn into the fact that, there might be 5 members walking out on Sunday. Because I think at some point we've got to start standing up for ourselves as a fan base. And if there's only 5 on Sunday that walk out, maybe next time there'll be 10, and then there'll be 20. And until you build up gradually like that, with consistency is what we've got to try and do this season. And that's what we're hoping for. But I completely understand. I completely agree. We'd have loved there to have been 1,000, 2,000 more in our last protest outside the stadium. But I think we've got to build it up again with consistent action against these owners. And I think what's interesting is you compare that to the amount of people that were booing the team off in that same game. There were 17,000. So what we've got to try and explore as Change for Tottenham is, why aren't those 17,000 supporting against the owners as well? And that's something I think we can achieve with consistent action.
Yeah, I think if I could add something, sorry, quick, Gary. I think one of the things as well, Billy, probably why you didn't get as many people in that other the other protest was probably because a lot of the, I'm not going to say true Tottenham fans. There's plenty of Tottenham fans all over the world in different aspects, but a lot of, really passionate Tottenham fans are being priced out of going to games.
Completely.
It costs so much money to go to Tottenham games. And, a lot of the people who are so passionate that are on Twitter every day talking about Tottenham, that are on these podcasts, listening to these podcasts, everything on Spurs, it's not as simple as being able to go to a lot of Tottenham games because of how much money it costs. You know, you've obviously got the cost of living just in general going up, let alone going to, you know, have that luxury of going to Tottenham games. It's so expensive, and it's hard for, you know, a lot of people to go. And that's another thing, you know, I hope Change for Tottenham will, I'm sure, you know, you have already considered that and are looking at that, because the cost of going to games is astronomical, and it's too much for especially what we're getting served on the football pitch.
Of course.
That leads into, sorry, Gary, that leads into, my next question, Bill, which was kind of, I think that a Change for Tottenham, you know, representative should be on the FAB or the Trust, because then I'm not sure they're representing the feelings of a lot of the fans strongly enough. Do you think there's a reason that they keep you off so that you can't ask the difficult questions, or is it just a bit more nuanced than that?
I'm not sure that it is more nuanced than that. I think, you know, when we've spoken to the club over the last season, particularly when Daniel Levy was in charge, we've always been rebuffed quite strongly, and they've always said, you need to go through the Trust, you need to go through the FAB. To be honest with you, I haven't said anything about this publicly yet, but that has changed slightly this season. They have been more open to dialogue since Daniel Levy has left. And again, I haven't said this anywhere else before, but we are in talks with the club this week. And they seem to be opening a bit more dialogue. So that is what we're aiming for. And I think the advantage that we have, you know, the Trust stood with us there on Saturday. We talk to them all the time, same with members of the FAB. I think the advantage we have over those people is we're just a group of fans, a group of season ticket holders that represent everyone else. We can effectively say whatever we want, and we do say whatever we want against the owners. I think obviously the FAB and the Trust are, you know, elected bodies. They have to go through the correct channels and all this. Change for Tottenham, we don't have to do any of that because we're just a fan-led organisation that is made by fans for fans. So hopefully, if we can get more regular meetings with the club, we can talk about these issues in a bit more of a frank way. And we completely support what the Trust are doing at the moment with their questionnaire, taking it to Vinay after the transfer window. I think it's a shame that the club have done that meeting after the transfer window, and that's probably intentional as well. But that's definitely something that we want. We want more regular dialogue with the club. But I have to say, for once, usually they always come back to us and say, you need to do this, this, and this. For the first time ever, they have allowed us to get in the room with them in a meeting. So watch this space for that one.
There's positive news coming from there anyway. I always say this: fight for the club you want, not for the one you're being given. And we should be fighting for the club that we want. I get because I was very not sure, and I understand that, and I know where the headspaces of people are in. Unfortunately, we are regressing massively as a football team, as a football club and business. We've never been stronger.
And I don't blame anyone for wanting to think that the new owners were going to be something different, because that's what we all want as fans. We all want to feel like this is going to be something new. I think they very, very quickly, and I would not have any problem with anyone that says, well, I'm going to give them a little bit of time to see what they're doing. I think that premise is, as you mentioned, Gary, exactly why it's already kind of disappeared, the goodwill behind that, because I think they've already shown themselves already. You know, this was such a big opportunity. It's not the easiest opportunity. I don't think any Spurs fan is asking for them to go and spend 300 million and bring in 7 players in January, but we're asking a little bit more than what we've got. What we've got is, you know, we've replaced a couple of injured players, and we're a couple of losses in the Premier League away from being in a real crisis, and they've not shown anything different so far to what we've seen before. And what we've seen before is the reason why we've declined for so many year on year in the new stadium.
Well, something that agitates me particularly, sorry, Gary, to cut in, is the fact that when the accounts go in for this year that we've just finished, we are going to have our turnover for the first time ever is going to go north of £600 million. Yep. Just £600 million. And they and Levy before them, whoever was in charge, have failed us because we are, you know, what we're the top 4 or 5 in the Deloitte's, I don't know, top 8, top 10, doesn't matter what it is. We have the FFP or PSR or the new SCR rules. We have the headroom, and it's just the will of the owners that they don't want to do that. And for me, if you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. Sell the club. Sell the club to somebody that does want to do it, that does want to work within the limits of a £600 million income. Because when you're at that level, you're getting onto the Arsenals and Liverpools and Manchester City levels of income and capacity, and it's an embarrassment that we can't turn that into players in the team that we want. It's an embarrassment.
Absolutely.
About it.
So just to make clear, there is 2,172 people watching right now, which is incredible. Please, if you can, drop over to our YouTube channel, give that a like. That would mean a lot to us. Just to reiterate, Sunday 4 p.m. is the before the kickoff. Meet in the South Stand during the game. ENIC out chants, and then on the 75th minute, the encouragement of leaving the stadium as well. Billy will be there. All the boys and all the girls will also be there. We are heading into the end of this January transfer window. I did have some transfer comments or questions for everybody, but they changed before I got to come on air. Michael Bridges of Sky Sports confirmed today that Tottenham aren't interested in Crystal Palace Jean-Philippe Mateta, which I think is a shame. He's likely to join Nottingham Forest. The club has also turned down 2 permanent offers for Callum Olasesi, who is an outstanding young player. They don't want to sell him permanently and prefer a loan move. And Ante Kinski is attracting, as we all know, interest from West Ham, looking likely that might happen. Joseph, just coming to you, little prediction time before we call it a night. I want you to nice and quickly predict how many players we are going to sign in this January transfer window. And if you want to throw a name at me, you can do that as well.
There will be none. I don't think Spurs are going to make any signings. Possibly one, and whoever that might be, who knows? I don't think it will be anyone that we're going to be applauding the board for. I don't think we're going to be sitting there happy with whoever comes in. Again, this is one of the biggest things. And I was kind of in the same camp as you, Gary, and kind of thinking, you know what, we've got to give them a little bit of time to actually show, what they're saying, they're taking into action, and they want to actually improve the team on the pitch and want to improve the club in terms of, stature within football. But very quickly that is been, that is quickly gone away. And we can see that from their actions, selling Brennan Johnson for, 35 million and getting Conor Gallagher in for a pretty much similar fee. They haven't spent any money basically over this window other than Sousa for 10 million. And that is not good enough for the position Tottenham are in, for the crisis that I would say that we're in terms of the league form and where we've been this season. Because this has been, let's not flatter it. This has been an awful season to be a Tottenham fan. We have seen awful football throughout the year, and we have seen players that probably aren't good enough to be in at the club. We need a lot more, and the injuries are a massive issue too. But you need to have a squad ready to, challenge with those injuries. Every other team is dealing with injuries too, but for some reason we can't seem to cope with them. So it's down to the ownership, and I can't believe we're now on the 29th of January and we haven't seen anybody else come in. Obviously, again, we won't know all the ins and outs of why that hasn't happened, but it's just so poor from an ownership kind of saying everything, saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to spend this money, we're going to, it's all been bullshit. It has been. And
my opinion on there is that that potentially they are not fully behind the manager, and they're not prepared to spend the money on buying more players in where they are likely to change the manager and the style and the formation like we've talked about. I've got a feeling that might be the case. Billy, coming to you, because I'm critical of time here for everybody. How many signings will we make in the final few days of the January transfer window?
I think we might at most make one more, which I think will leave us short again. I think it sounds like the only thing which could happen at the moment is possibly Andy Robertson, which I think is a fine transfer. It's an okay transfer. It's okay to replace Ben Davis, but I think we need a lot more. I think we need a lot more in the forward line in particular, which there's been no meaningful links. I just messaged you privately, Gary, just to say that Miguel Delaney has linked us with Moussa Diaby in the last minutes. That's the kind of I'm not massively familiar with the player, but I know that we definitely need a winger of some kind. So that'd be. I don't know much about. Does anyone know much about Moussa Diaby? But I know he's gone to Saudi, hasn't he?
He was playing at Newcastle, wasn't he, Moussa Diaby?
Yeah, he's also linked us to Villa.
No, sorry, he was at Aston Villa. Sorry, not.
It was Villa. He was Villa, wasn't he? Yeah,
and he's linked going back. Villa seem to be signing all their old players because they're linked with him again. So
yeah, he was at Leverkusen before Villa.
Yeah.
He's quite an exciting winger, a bit like Odegaard, I would say. I'd compare him to. He's kind of good on the ball, runs with it well, but when he came to the Premier League, he hasn't really fully kind of became the player that everyone thought he was going to be. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. Again, we need bodies. That's the biggest thing. We need players who can play in these positions up front, and obviously we want quality. But right now, it's more than even just quality. We need 12 fit outfield players, senior players for Champions League games going into this run in the Premier League as well. It's frightening. We need results in these games. Like Billy said, we're getting dragged into a really uncomfortable position where we're genuinely concerned about possible relegation. That's a real thing. It's a real possibility. I know, a lot of Tottenham fans will say we're too big, to go down, but you're never too big to go down. You really don't know what can happen. If we lose, City, Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, on paper, our squad's ability in terms of who we've got available right now, I would expect us to lose all 5 of those games. It's a real possibility we could. And then you're looking at it and you're thinking West Ham are probably above us. We're going to be possibly in 18th place, and you really don't know what's going to happen at that point. So we need players through the door, and maybe Moussa Diaby could be, one to come in, but you still need more than that. I don't think that's not enough, that's the problem. We've got a couple of days left, and they've left it so late where you're thinking
he's
maybe
got 18 months left on his contracts. It doesn't surprise me that this is the type of deal that they're looking for. The last time he played in the Premier League, obviously, was Aston Villa, 38 games in the in that season in the Premier League. He played every game, scored 6 goals, 8 assists. As I say, he is 26 years old, so something to keep an eye on. I am very critical of time because I may have to drop out in a minute. Just coming to Sunday's game against Manchester City. So give me a nice quick prediction.
1-3. I just think Semenyo will do us for the 3rd time this season. Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but he loves playing against Spurs. If we got a draw, I'd be really happy. But I think I think it's stacked against us. But I'm slightly different. I do think we can get something from the Newcastle game, and I do think we can get something from the Manchester United game myself. I'm more hopeful for those, but City and the Woolwich Wanderers,
3-1 for Si.
Sorry,
Billy,
mate.
coming to you. Predictions for this weekend?
I wouldn't be. I think similar. I think maybe 2 or 3-0. I know that we have this historic hold over Man City. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think the quality is miles of what we have at the moment, and I think Marmoush just come back into the side. Cherky, Marmoush, Haaland, Semenyo. It's just levels above everything that we can put out at the moment. So I think I'm going to go 2-0 Man City.
Joseph, just coming to you. There is 2,160 of you watching. Drop your predictions in there. We will be signing off in the next couple of minutes. But Joseph, your prediction?
Yeah, I think I'll go 2-1 Manchester City. I think as much as I know, we have had their number over the last couple of years. I think again that attack is scary. With Semenyo coming in, Doku, Foden. Sometimes Foden's not even starting for Manchester City. That's how good they are. And now they've brought in Guehi at the back. They look so much more assured of themselves coming out from the back, which is massive for them. I can't see us getting a result. To be fair, I mean, it will be interesting how that actually might help the walkout, depending on how the game goes. Because you never know, on the 75th minute, people might want to be wanting to leave if Spurs really aren't doing well. So it could help with the walkout, and hopefully the message still comes across that people aren't leaving because of the game. People are leaving because of unhappiness.
We'll take anyone
with the
leaving
ownership.
if we can get it. We'll take it. We'll take anyone.
Well, it could be that a very toxic atmosphere again. It could be that the home fans are just fed up again. I sit. I do get a quite a broad clientele around me, if it's the right way of saying things. Most of them are there as traveling people that are just there to watch football. I think that's what comes across quite a lot in the stadium, and perhaps sometimes slightly hampers the Change for Spurs messages in certain spaces, like we were asking earlier. I think a lot of them are there for a day out, but that core fan base is clearly online, and it's great to hear that the club are engaging. I encourage everybody to get down there at the South Stand. It is very friendly. The first time I went, I'm not really someone that likes confrontation or anything like that. It was very friendly. I was welcome. People asking me if I was okay. At one point, I was right at the front holding the banner, and I said to myself, and this isn't like me, and I'm holding the banner up, and people were taking photos of me. And I don't know what came over me, but Daniel Levy left, and we started to get some things that we wanted as a football club. So my message to end this to the 2,200 of you is, let's fight for the club we want, not for the club we're being given, and collectively we can make a change. Billy, I'm going to leave it to you to end this. Please give us your last few words on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you summarised it perfectly there, but I think the time comes to Tottenham fans where we need to come together and stand up for our club in big numbers, because if we don't, we'll be continuing to take a ride like we have been over the last 25 years under these owners. So please join us. Let the people know that Tottenham fans are not going to sit here and allow these owners to do this again. And let's fight for the change that we want to see.
Excellent. And everybody, please go and follow all these great people. Obviously, Billy T's massive over on X. Joseph as well over there. Joseph THFC. Sada Fox over there. He's got a really long Twitter handle that I can't pronounce, but it's on my link to this. This 2,200 of you. Please do drop over and give us a like on YouTube, so we can put out some more content on there. We'll hopefully be back Sunday as well. In the meantime, obviously, as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Oh, the streets are cold and grey, but the fire in our